Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where we discuss leading political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. We normally try to take Wednesdays off, but once again, there is just too much. We need to release an extra episode today, so we're on top of it. This mass poisoning of children story will be covered as the last story of today's video. For those who want to skip to that, you can use the chapter feature below. A warning, it is a very disturbing development. But first up, we need to move into the Chinese economy, so let's jump in. China's producer prices recorded their steepest decline in nearly 2 years, underscoring deepening factory gate deflation and posing fresh challenges for policymakers trying to stabilize growth. The producer price index, PPI, fell by 3.6% in June compared to a year earlier, according to official data from the National Bureau of Statistics published today, Wednesday. Now, these are official numbers, so we take them with a grain of salt, but these are already very bad and could be worse. This marks the 33rd straight month of decline and a sharper drop than May's 3.3% fall, suggesting that producer deflation is getting worse. This continued deflation reflects weakening demand and overcapacity across key industrial sectors, with economists warning of a vicious cycle of falling prices, shrinking profits, and stagnant wages. In contrast, consumer inflation showed a slight improvement. The consumer price index, CPI, rose 0.1% year-on-year, reversing a string of 3 monthly declines and outperforming expectations for another drop. Still, this is not a positive number. Despite the ongoing stimulus push, including a nationwide trade-in program for vehicles and appliances, analysts say the support has yet to meaningfully lift consumer confidence. Complicating matters, however, several provinces have temporarily suspended subsidy programs after exhausting central funds, prompting Beijing to promise renewed fiscal support. However, economists argue that more sustainable long-term strategies are needed to revive domestic sentiment. In a sign of growing concern, China's top leadership last week vowed to tackle, quote, disorderly low-price competition, end quote, a byproduct of overcapacity and intensifying price wars among firms. We covered this at the time, and we have been following this renewed emphasis from Beijing on overcapacity concerns. Tomorrow, if there is a video, we'll be unpacking this in greater detail. Yet analysts caution that local officials remain hesitant to cut output or risk job losses, suggesting that these pressures may persist for years. June data revealed mixed trends. Consumer good prices dipped 0.2%, food prices fell 0.3%, with service prices edging up 0.5%. Core inflation, excluding food and energy, rose 0.7% year-on-year. With producer prices continuing to slide and consumer inflation barely positive, China's deflation threat remains a central economic challenge amid rising global headwinds and a protracted trade war with the United States. And speaking of trade, Japan's rare earth imports from China have plummeted to their lowest levels in over 5 years, exposing the country's vulnerability to Beijing's tightening grip on these critical minerals. According to Japan's finance ministry, imports of Chinese rare earth minerals fell to 582.4 million yen, $3.96 million US, in May, a staggering 72.4% drop from the same month a year earlier. This is the lowest monthly total since February 2020, when global trade was heavily disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The sharp decline follows new export restrictions imposed by China, which holds a dominant position in the global supply chain for rare earths. Once again, this will not be a surprise to regular viewers. These minerals are essential for manufacturing electric vehicles, wind turbines, advanced electronics, and defense hardware. Japanese media outlets Nikkei and Kyodo News report that the cuts are already taking a toll on Japanese industry. Nissan Motor has been forced to scale back production of its new Leaf EV model due to a shortage of rare earth magnets, which are vital for EV motors. We saw a similar shutdown of production for some Ford factories in the United States last month for similar reasons. They simply could not get their rare earths from China. Beijing's restrictions appear to be part of a broader strategy to weaponize its control of rare earth processing and potentially cripple industrial output of rivals. Of course, this processing and the mining can be done anywhere in the world, but it takes years for the transition to happen. Indeed, this escalation highlights a long-standing blind spot among Western and Asian manufacturers. Despite early warnings, including China's first rare earth export cut to Japan in 2011, most nations have failed to secure alternative supply chains. While countries like South Korea have expanded stockpiles and Japan has invested in Australian mining ventures, these efforts remain limited in scope. As geopolitical tensions rise, China's latest move serves as a stark reminder that critical minerals are not just industrial inputs, they are instruments of power, and many governments and companies, despite years of warning, are still unprepared. Next up, the upcoming EU-China summit, now reduced to a single day on the 24th of July in Beijing, which we covered earlier in the week, is shaping up to be one of the most contentious in years as political tensions mount and mutual distrust grows. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, speaking at the European Parliament on yesterday, delivered a blistering critique of Beijing's trade policies, cyber behavior and support for Russia, setting a grim tone for the talks. Von der Leyen argued that the EU must confront, quote, strategic and systemic, end quote, risks in its relationship with China, including unfair trade practices and growing economic dependencies. She accused China of flooding global markets with subsidized overcapacity and using, quote, unique instruments to play outside the rules, end quote, challenging European competitiveness. The Commission's focus, she emphasized, would remain on de-risking rather than decoupling, with the EU aiming to rebalance economic ties, strengthen supply chain resilience, and enhance diplomatic engagement on shared challenges. However, this optimism for cooperation is rapidly deflating. Hopes that the summit might resolve a standoff over electric vehicle tariffs were dampened after senior EU officials dismissed reports of an imminent deal as untrue. Furthermore, the decision to cancel a planned second day of meetings in Hefei, once intended to provide a symbolic boost to bilateral ties, has been widely interpreted as a sign of deteriorating relations. Beijing's steadfast alignment with Moscow remains a key sticking point. Von der Leyen warned that China's support for Russia's war economy is, quote, de facto enabling, end quote, the conflict in Ukraine, and reiterated that how Beijing continues to interact with President Putin will be a determining factor in the future of EU-China relations. As we discussed in yesterday's episode 2, Wang Yi, China's top diplomat, admitted this week, frankly, that China wants to see the war continue because it divides Western attention and takes it away from China. As we discussed in today's episode of my other channel Market Update, the Europeans are preparing to spend over 100 billion euros to support the Ukrainians. At a time of great fiscal pressure on many European countries, they will not be very pleased that the Chinese are prolonging the conflict, essentially a proxy conflict, in order to push their own strategic goals. Diplomatic strains escalated further after Germany summoned the Chinese ambassador to protest a recent incident in which a Chinese warship targeted a German surveillance aircraft with a laser in the Red Sea. The aircraft was operating under an EU mission to protect civilian vessels from Houthi attacks. Berlin called the attack reckless and a serious breach of international norms. In the only bright spot of news over the last 24 hours, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz reportedly is planning his first visit to China later this year, accompanied by top business executives. The EU-China summit is now set against a backdrop of high tensions, competing agendas, and limited expectations. As von der Leyen put it, real progress will require, quote, fair solutions, end quote, to long-standing disputes, something both sides seem increasingly skeptical of achieving. Next up, we have one more deeply concerning development to cover. If you want to continue to be on top of the most up-to-date analysis on China developments, as well as China's role in an increasingly uncertain world, consider subscribing to China Update. Hit the bell notification icon and you will be. If you're enjoying today's episode or getting some value from it, it's a huge help if you hit the like button. And for those who want to help keep China Update financially sustainable, I rely primarily on your support, audience support, to keep going, producing these episodes every day. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. If you want to support independent media and follow these developments through grounded and sober analysis without a corporate bias, this is a tremendous help. Thank you so much. And finally for today, a shocking case of mass lead poisoning at a private kindergarten in Tianshui, Gansu province, has ignited national outrage and prompted the criminal detention of 8 individuals. Authorities confirmed that 233 of the 251 children tested at Peixin kindergarten were found to have abnormally high blood lead levels, a result of deliberate contamination of school meals with toxic industrial pigments. The scandal broke after parents began noticing alarming symptoms in their children, including white hair, vomiting, and the loss of appetite. One parent concerned about these signs took their child to a local hospital in June, where blood tests revealed elevated lead levels. As more cases emerged, the Maiji District's Market Supervision Administration and Public Security Bureau launched a joint investigation on the 1st of July. By the 7th of July, Monday of this week, authorities had tested all children enrolled at Peixin Kindergarten. While 18 were found to have normal blood lead levels, 233 were diagnosed with lead poisoning. Testing also showed that staff members who consumed the same food had abnormal lead levels, further implicating the school meals. The investigation revealed that the kindergarten's principal, surnamed Zhu, and investor, surnamed Li, had authorized the kitchen staff to purchase and use brightly colored industrial paint, clearly labeled, obviously, as inedible in food preparation. The pigments purchased online were intended to enhance the visual appeal of meals, but contained dangerously high concentrations of lead. Samples of a date cake and a corn sausage roll served at the school were found to contain over 2,000 times the legal safety limit. On the 3rd of July, authorities seized the remaining pigment, which had been hidden, and confirmed its toxicity. Police have since detained 8 individuals, including Zhu and Li, on suspicion of producing toxic and harmful food. 2 others were placed under bail pending further investigation. Peixin Kindergarten, a private school established in 2022 and charging over 10,000 yuan, approximately $1,395 per year, marketed itself as a high-end bilingual institution with appealing meal services. The Chinese public has responded with fury. Social media platforms were flooded with comments demanding accountability and systemic reform. Food safety has been a long and serious issue in China. Last year, of course, we covered the use of oil tankers to transport food oil, which potentially affected hundreds of thousands of people. In response to this latest news, local health authorities have formed a multidisciplinary medical team from Gansu and Shanxi provinces to treat the affected children. Specialized care is being administered under expert supervision. 2 national-level specialists have been sent to the area to ensure effective treatment protocols and stable supply of medication. The scandal has prompted wider scrutiny of food safety standards at private educational institutions across China. And like we just said, is yet another example of a mass food scandal, which frankly boggles the mind. As the investigation continues, the case stands as one of China's most egregious school food safety violations in recent years. A stark reminder of the risks posed by China's culture of lax oversight and reckless cost cutting. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Wednesday, and I will see you for another episode on Friday.